This is the Garden of English. I'm Tim Freitas, and today I'm going to actually bring on a couple friends to talk about the most recent textbook that they wrote, and it's got a focus for AP Lit. So you're going to want to check this one out. All right, I am here with a good friend of mine, Brandon Abden, and Brandon has actually brought on a good friend of his, and that is Becky McFarland. And we're going to let them talk about themselves in just a second and what they have to offer here for us today. But before we do, I want to just give a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters here at the Garden of English. Their names are going to be somewhere on this screen because this is not a setup that I'm used to filming with, but we'll get your names up here. If you're interested in actually supporting the Garden of English through Patreon or seeing what other things we have to offer and other ways that you can support us, you can check out the video that's up in the corner that's pinned right up there as you're watching now. But now that we've expressed our thanks for our Patreon supporters, I can actually invite the conversation with Brandon and Becky as we discuss this new AMSCO Lit book that they are the authors of, which I am super amped about getting for my classroom. I've already submitted for the budget for it. And so anyway, Brandon, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll talk to Becky for a minute, and then we'll get into what this book actually entails. Take it away, Brandon.
Great. Thank you, Tim. And every time I talk to you like this, Tim, I'm always amazed at the energy you bring to this and the zeal. And I really, really appreciate it. We can all draw off of that energy. So thank you. Glad everyone's here. And I'm really thankful that Becky not only agreed to come and do this video with me, but agreed to work through this process and write a book with me. Becky, I'll go ahead and introduce her here in just a moment. But I taught AP Literature and AP Language for several years and have been consulting with teachers for a long time. Currently, I work in Cincinnati, Ohio, working directly with teachers on a day-to-day basis. I've also taught university courses, composition for teachers, literature for teachers, as well as composition. And so taught at all those levels, 7 through 12, and then up into college.
Yes.
And I think a lot of you know that I did the work with the College Board too, helping to lead some of the work that was happening with the creation of the course and exam description binders.
And that's actually where we met for the most part. I mean, we had met before then a little bit, but that's where we actually got to know each other.
That's right. Yeah, we had both been doing some sessions in Massachusetts, where you're from, and we'd met that way. And when we at College Board started talking about people we needed to do some instructional work for us, Tim, you were at the front of our minds, and Becky for literature was at the front of our minds too. And so we were delighted to be able to do some of that work. And when I left College Board in 2019, I was lucky enough to get to continue doing this work. I drew you, Tim, and Lauren Peterson into doing the language book with us, which was fantastic. And then the subsequent literature book, I knew who I wanted, and I called Becky. So I'll go ahead and introduce Becky, and then she can kind of talk a little bit more about her experience. Becky was one of my APSI consultants when I first started teaching, and we happened to live in the same town at the time. So we maintained a relationship, and I learned a lot from Becky and was able to collaborate on a couple of things. And of course, when I went to College Board and started doing work there, and they started talking about people who we needed to bring in to do some instructional work, Becky was at the front of my mind. So Becky, I know you're very humble to all of your experience, and that's lovely. But I will point out that she retired from one of the best high schools, if not the best high school in the state of Ohio. And she has been an international consultant, going to China several times to consult on AP English Literature and Language, and has done quite a bit as far as work with instruction for the AP courses. So with that said, Becky, I know I probably missed something or misstated something, so I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself too.
Becky, tell us about you. Because this is the first time I've ever met you. I'm super thrilled. This is great.
Yeah, Tim, same. I've seen your name in emails and worked with AMSCO and Perfection Learning, and I'm with Brenda and on your energy. It's very inspiring.
Well, the second the camera turns off, I'm done. So.
So, a teacher's goal is always to have her students surpass where she is, and that certainly has been the case with Brandon. So I have been very, very honored to be able to work with him. In fact, on my hard drive, I have a folder that's titled Brandon, and it has many subfolders. Yes, I do, many subfolders with the various projects we've worked on together. But yeah, he's right. I retired after 39 years in the classroom. I have rural experience, urban experience, suburban experience. Most of it is suburban from Indian Hill High School in Cincinnati, Ohio. I have taught both English literature and language for 35 years, and I have quite a bit of pre-AP experience, both in leading programs and implementing curriculum in my district. So I'm excited to be here.
Right.
Thank you for doing this, Tim.
Absolutely, no problem at all. So what we want to do is we want to actually take some time now to, look at the book that's going to be coming out and be ready for next school year. And I just want to talk to y'all and just get, a feel for a couple different things, right? Number one, I want to look at, okay, how did the book come together? Like, what's the format of the book? If I'm a teacher that's going to get this, what can I expect in the format of my book? I kind of want to know what the, what went into the reading selections that you guys chose to pick. And then I also want to know, what were the kind of struggles that kind of came in? But, we worked through it to produce the best book that we can, especially for the price point that AMSCO offers. There's no doubt about that. So why don't we just start, first of all, about what the book looks like in terms of format and what I can expect it to look like, in my classroom. What do you think?
So,
Brandon?
You want me to go ahead with that, Becky?
Yeah, I'd like for you to do that.
So one of the things when I started talking with AMSCO about both the language and the literature book, I wasn't really interested in doing anything like an anthology, what people might think of as a traditional literature textbook.
Right.
And there have been other people who've done things like that look really good. And I could list a few. But I really wanted to do something that was helping people understand some of the discussions that we had when we were developing the course and exam descriptions, and some of the things that I learned from just the brilliant professors and others that I've had the opportunity to work with and learn from through graduate school and things like that. So what I pitched to Perfection Learning was something that was built around the instruction of the course more than it was around all of the texts.
Yep.
And so what we then did, and if you're familiar with the language book, that this format it's almost identical.
Oh, good. Excellent.
Yeah, for each of the units, we have an anchor text, and the anchor text fits the genre of the unit. So we have a short story, then we'll have a poem, and then we'll have excerpts from a novel.
Okay, so you don't actually include any of the kind of shorter, longer novels. So there's no 60 pages in there of Jekyll and Hyde or something like that. It's just excerpts from a novel.
Well, Becky could tell you that we bounced, and bandied that idea around quite a bit with. We thought about including all of the Metamorphosis, and I at one point had included the entire play, No Exit.
Okay.
And we just found out that trying to keep the price point you mentioned and include all of that for all those pages, and similar to the language book, it's not just a guide; it's a hefty book.
Yeah, right.
And the idea is that we have enough in there so that enough excerpts from novels in there and plays that students could substantially analyze what's happening.
Gotcha.
With the skills they're learning in those units.
Awesome.
Becky, what else am I missing there, you think?
Well, I think the word transfer is important here. We don't want this, as Brandon says, to be another anthology, but rather examples of how to teach and pathways for teachers to select their own text if they don't like ours, and transfer the method of teaching the skill to whatever content they have.
Right.
As we all know, there are so many choices that English teachers and districts have, and there was just no way to capture all of them in a book.
All right, so having experience with the Lang book, being a co-author of it, I know that we really tried to make sure that we provided a book that had the setup of the text, and then we gave the kind of experience with the test itself, the AP exam, and then we tried to also include activities. And so I'm just wondering, do you feel like this book is set up the same way as that, where I can not think of it as just a test prep book or something like that? Like, how do you envision this book looking for teachers in the classroom like that?
So if you're familiar with the language book, it looks very much like the language book. And the intention there was not that, oh, the language book looks great, let's make everything look just like it. This was kind of the plan all along. I was really feeling that if you're going to teach one course and then teach the other course, or if you're collaborating, which I hope is happening between Lang and Lit teachers, that you want the books to look similar. And so we did that with this book. I've mentioned that it's not an anthology, so we were able to do those anchor texts in each unit and then refer constantly back to those throughout and bring in other texts while we're teaching, which is great with what Becky has really pushed for with the transfer of materials across different possible texts and back to the anchor text in that unit and then beyond into other texts.
So I can expect to not only have questions for kids to answer in there though, but like activities, just like in the Lane book as well. Like, hey, here's an activity that actually works to apply this skill, not just a singular question where it's like death by question.
That's right. That's right. And we give models. We have painstakingly, I'll use that term. We've painstakingly filled out every organizer, every activity that we ask students to do ourselves so that we see that it can be done. And so that teachers have access to that in the teacher's edition so they can see it too. But then the idea is all that stuff's content agnostic. So you could take it and use it with anything. Becky, did you want to jump in?
Well, I did want to say, I think this is one section different from the Lang book. We have a section in each unit called Creating on Your Own. And I don't know about you, Tim and Brandon, but AP Lit students can be their writing can be very boring and formulaic. So I think by having students create imaginative literature on their own, it's going to help them transfer, here I go with transfer again, transfer the voice from their creative work over to their academic writing.
Right. And I think that's so valuable because, if I really want kids to understand how an author creates a mood through a setting, maybe they should actually work on creating a mood through a setting to have gone through that thought process and then be able to be like, oh, so now I can write about how this author's choice of language here or image actually conveys that. Oh, I think that's a great idea.
And we're even asking students to get real particular. So we'll say, hey, start out writing just some dialogue. Then they're going to reflect back on that each time and say, add in some adjectives that help shape that dialogue in a certain direction. How can you create contrast between the two characters and do that? So they're seeing those things work on their own. We know it's not a creative writing class, but as we all agreed, it's something that helps students better understand how the writer's craft works so they can analyze it. And we did the same thing in the composition book where we're asking students to compose on their own and try those same moves that they're analyzing for rhetoric. So.
All right. Now, I know that with every book, having been part of this, that sometimes, I don't know, for the lack of a better term, obstacles kind of get in the way. So now we're preparing for this excellent book that's going to come out in the fall, and we're all jazzed up for it. And we know that it's not just a test prep book, but it gives us some test prep materials, but we also get some, some content to transfer. And I think that's totally awesome, Becky, that you keep bringing that up because that's the point of us teaching these skills. But can you tell me about any of the obstacles that you've kind of experienced as you've kind of gone through this? Like, Becky, what do you think about that?
Well, we started this project when you started the Lang project, and then Perfection put Lit on hold. And I had done.
Didn't something happen? Something happened, like a bunch of people got sick, I think, or something like that.
Maybe a pandemic. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right. There was a pandemic.
COVID. But I had done Unit 3 and used the Metamorphosis as the teaching text. And when it went out to reviewers, the reviewers said, this is far too complex for early in the year. So, Unit 3 looks completely different from what I initially did.
And I would even say, the text that is the first text in Unit 1 was not the original first text in Unit 1. That is now the text in Unit 4. And when we finished the book a month ago, there was a completely different text in Unit 6. And it's just, we realize as we look at the whole body of work that Unit 6, just the text we'd used just didn't fit. So we had to make some other changes because we really wanted students to have an array of experiences with different genres of text, different periods of text. Yeah. And I think we check so many boxes in this as far as experiences. Becky mentioned some of it earlier, but we've got regional texts where people speak with accents. What else do we have, Becky? We've got
well, we have contemporary poetry. We have traditional sonnets. You know, it's
we have traditional and modern sonnets set against one another.
Mm-hmm.
We have science fiction. We have modern science fiction, and we have Frankenstein, which I know Tim loves.
Oh, I do. I love it. I really do.
Yeah,
and so I also love Ozymandias when I teach Frankenstein, FYI. That excellently complex poem, just tossing that out there.
Yeah, I know. Frankenstein can be complex or not, and Ozymandias can be complex or not. Yeah, that's a different.
Or always.
That's Tim and I have history with that,
that's
but right. Ozymandias is in the book, and so that's something that makes me think, Becky, as we are now refinishing 6, maybe we reference back to Ozymandias as we talk about Frankenstein.
So Frankenstein is that kind of core text for 6 then, yeah?
It is. It is.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so even though we aren't able to include the entire text, Becky has done it. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at it. It's right here on the screen. She's just done a stellar job to pull enough so that students can read the text and learn what they need to learn and practice what they need to learn in that unit. But and then so a teacher could decide that they want to do the entire unit, do the entire novel, because we don't want those things to necessarily take the place of the novel.
Right. Absolutely. Well, no, this is great. So now I'm going to ask, just for final comments about the book as a whole, because we're going to wrap this up here. So Becky, we're going to start with you. Final comments about the book as a whole. Me as an English teacher, like, why should I be super amped and be like, you know what, maybe this is something I need to consider?
It's utilitarian.
All right.
It could be a text that teachers use themselves to understand the how and what to teach. Yep. It can be a text that students use on their own to augment what's being done in class, or it could be used as the class anchor text as well. I think teachers, particularly first year, second year, third year AP teachers, will find it very beneficial as they try to get their head wrapped around skills and essential knowledge statements.
Right. And even the course and exam description, because it follows it. So super awesome. Right now, Brandon, final comments about the book from you.
Becky, I would echo everything Becky just said.
Yep.
And to say that though you could teach the whole course with just the book, I would sit down and find ways to supplement other short stories and other novels with it. Even finding ways when I'm in a poetry unit to pull excerpts from a novel or excerpts from a short story, because we really do. We talk about a little bit, but can't dive in as much as we'd like to how these skills apply across all different types of literature. So I really think this is a great course handbook for the teacher and students.
No, well, that's great. I got to tell you, I really appreciate you spending your time coming on here, right? Please note, folks, that the easiest way that you can actually support the Garden of English, right, who's trying to support you with videos like this, is by just clicking like and subscribe to our channel. Please note that we're also active on both Facebook and Instagram, so you can reach us there. I know that Brandon's super active on Facebook and on Twitter. Brandon, what's your Twitter handle again? @BrandonAbden. Okay, there you go. That's as easy as that. We'll put it on the bottom of the screen when you said that as well. We do have affiliate links down below for the Garden of English, so please consider clicking on that. But you can also find the link to the Perfection Learning books and their AP editions. So we'll put that link right down in the description as well. And I'm looking forward to your book for next year. There's no doubt about that. The Lang book has been a lot of fun to implement in my own classroom as well. And once again, I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much, Tim.
All right, have a great one.
Bye, Becky. Bye, Tim.
Bye.